one of the most challenging decisions one can make on the spiritual path and journey toward really self-mastery and becoming a greater and better version of yourself is your previous and former life. And what I mean by that is certain friend groups and sort of people you surround yourself with that you know sort of deep down within your intuition that you need to disconnect from and ultimately sort of lead a path on your own and see where that takes you. This is something I went through a little over 3.5 years ago, and ultimately I feel personally that it was the best decision I ever made, because there are an infinite number of lifelines that are possible, infinite number of parallel realities that exist. And the reality or lifeline that I was on before was very destructive. I didn't really see the end goal in mind that I had for myself. And that has a lot to do with YouTube, that has a lot to do with offering coaching and counseling and doing good in the world, doing better, doing things to make the world a better place. And I was doing a lot of drinking, going to clubs, bars, things like this, house parties. And this to me was, I kind of see it as a growing pain, because I see that now that it was necessary in order for me to get to where I am now. And looking back on all of those years that I experienced, I now know that it got me and led me to where I am now. And it's very empowering, but the most difficult thing about that situation is making the decision, right? I was very cutthroat. I probably could have approached it in a much more gentle way with the people I used to hang out with, but for me it was necessary just to cut it off, cut that form of life off, and then set anew on what I'm trying to establish for myself now. And there's been a lot of ups and downs, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, a lot of growing pains, a lot of growing in general. But if you're in a situation, maybe you're a younger man, a younger female, and like from 18 to 25, and you may have been in the same situation I was in, and you may feel that inner resistance coming up, like, because it's challenging your whole internal world. The subconsciousness really has its own way of protecting you, and has this self-preservation mechanism. And so it can be very hard to make these decisions. But once you make the decision and you lead out of your comfort zone, a whole new world can open up for you. I mean, you may have seen that in other areas of your life. You were very uncomfortable about making a certain decision, whether that be in business or relationships or something like that, but yet you followed through with it, and your whole life changed, it transformed. New opportunities begin to present themselves to you in your life. Well, for me specifically, I'm very hesitant to use the word isolation, but in these last 3.5 years, that's really been the whole premise of my life. But I truly believe deep down it was for all the right reasons. Because first of all, we just don't know ourselves. Because we live in this rat race, this cyclical reality of doing the same things day in and day out, getting a paycheck, paying the bills, barely scraping by, but without actually knowing our inner self, focusing on our spiritual nature. And this can be tough for some people, because they've got kids, they've got a family, they've got a mortgage, they've got priorities. But if you ask me, health and spirituality should be the utmost important in one's life. Because if you have a family, you have all these obligations, especially if your health's not in check, as well as your spirituality to show up in a certain way, to have more understanding of other people around you, more of a intuitive awareness, an empathic nature to yourself, to be able to care and hold a space for other people. you know, it's going to be very challenging to show up and to meet those expectations in life. So I would absolutely recommend focusing on health and spirituality as sort of the fundamentals, the foundation when it comes to living an overall life of health and well-being, spiritual mastery, things like that. Is you've got to look after your health and well-being, or your health and spirituality first and foremost. But I've learned a lot over these last 3.5 years, and I wouldn't take it back for anything, because I needed to go through these experiences, very highs and lows, very fluctuating emotions, because you're not going out and doing the things that you were doing with your friends and things like that. So you go from being around a group of people, beginning to get used to that, and then kind of reclusing into a more introverted lifestyle. But for me specifically, I've always naturally been introverted, so it wasn't much of a transition for me. So that played to my advantage. So really just begin to question the closest people that surround yourself, because we really become like the people that we associate ourselves with. I associated myself with people who constantly drank alcohol, went to clubs and bars, that sort of scenery, hung out with women, things like that. And that was my life. And so it's just good to do a sort of self-inquiry on our own particular life circumstances and really be truthful, be honest with ourselves, and ask, is this the life I want to lead? Is this life that I'm living right now going to surmount to the life that I foresee in my near future? If not, there may be difficult decisions that have to be made. But with all of that being said, that's all we have for you in today's video. If you did gain value from the video, be sure to like it and drop a comment below letting us know what you got from the video, what sort of value you gained. With that being said, we'll speak very soon.